afternoon, everybody. My name is Adrian Flack from AD Global Solution, the training specialist for the language area. Today I'm with Rudra, and we're going to be discussing cross-culture, and of course it's going to be held in English. But before we start, we'd like to just explain a little bit about our company. AD Global Solution is ISO 9001 certified in the EA37 area, which basically means we are certified and qualified in education. And for those that don't know, it is internationally recognized, and of course it guarantees our company's ability to meet our client requirements with high quality. Having said that, we're always ready to provide our consulting services, all kinds of client companies in various business areas, and we also assist in the funded training programs thanks to our internal service AFP, which administers finance projects. AD Global Solution has also specialized in training services for relevant areas in personal development for many years, and of course nationwide. In our division, banking and insurance, you will probably notice that we've done many courses as well, but I would say the most important is IVAS, and both in the classroom as well as we offer e-learning as well. Managerial sector, we offer innovative courses for development of human resources and support of organizational processes. We offer courses such as time management and relationship management. AD Safety provides different courses in the field of health and safety at work, ranging from standard courses for company roles in meeting security measurements and up to customized courses as well in specific training. Our technology division, we deliver various types of courses ranging from ECDL certification, Microsoft packages, and up to specific software training as well for organizations and management of companies and entities. Of course, my area, AD Languages, thanks to our qualified teachers, we are capable of course, making tailor-made courses, both for general and business learning. We of course meet our client requirements. We have different kinds of modes. We have face-to-face, we have distant learning, could be web lessons, telephone lessons, e-learning naturally as well, and we're of course also a Cambridge Exam Preparation Centre. So, before we start, at this point I'd like to introduce our expert trainer Rudra again. Rudra Chakraborty will be discussing the importance of cross-culture awareness, and will be giving us a few tips on how to communicate English across culture.
Good afternoon, Adrian. Well, what we are going to look at today is basically three simple things. We're going to try and understand what culture is, what are the implications of culture in business, and then, as you said, we're going to do some tips. Let me start off by just defining multicultural, because you see, me and you, we come from different context. Basically, you're from South Africa, I'm from India. I've always studied in English in a multicultural country. You've been in South Africa and then across the world in multicultural context. Now, when we take this concept and put it into a company, we get a multicultural workforce. So me and you, we work together. Now, let's be honest, we don't always see eye to eye.
Sure.
That's a way of saying, I mean, we are going to have differences.
Yeah.
But these differences in the workplace also exist, not just because of our cultures, but also can exist because of reasons written on the slides, such as age, sex, ethnicity. All these have an impact on the way we think and the way we work. So, multicultural companies, just to give a couple of examples, we're talking about Microsoft. Global company, multicultural people from many countries, different ages working inside the company.
Yeah.
For example, nowadays in Italy we live longer and longer, so you get 5 generations living inside one company. This is uncommon. This was not the case 10, 20 years ago.
Sure. Different mentalities as well, I'm sure as well.
Different mentalities. So we are living in a multicultural. You know about globalization, we all know about globalization. Well, it is leading to a multicultural work context. In order to manage the multicultural work context, there are 2 ways of doing it. We call this diversity management. And today I'm just giving, let's say, eagle eye view, so top level vision here. So where do we manage that? What are the cases? Let me give some exact cases. Surely on the slide you see 2 cases. There's international diversity management. Now this will happen, for example, day-to-day scenario, migrants coming into Italy. What is happening? Let me give an example. If you go to the marble caves of Carrara, you have a lot of people working in the marble sector. It is 16% of Carrara's economy is based on marble, and many of these caves employ multicultural foreigners who have come from different countries and reside there. Now, a cave works on shifts.
Right.
Now, there are some people of Islamic religion who want to pray 4 times a day, 5 times a day. Hence, what's going to happen? Now, cave managers who were cutting marble day in and day out and used to certain shifts, when they saw that their workforce was becoming more and more multicultural, they started devising special prayer time, and they changed the routines so that all this multicultural workforce could feel better and in the end give more. This is an example of intranational diversity management. Cross-national diversity management is, for example, any Italian company that is going abroad. For example, let's say Saipem. Saipem go abroad. They do projects in Saudi Arabia. They do projects in Indonesia. So you got to manage the people who go from one country to another country. You move a family has needs. It needs teaching. Who is going to manage that? That is managed by HR resources who focus on the different needs. For example, if an Italian person goes from here to Saudi Arabia, his needs are very different from an Indian person who works for Saipem and is then moved to Saudi Arabia. So these things need to be managed, and that kind of thing needs to be managed because diversity management will help you ease team building factors, low productivity. These are, for example, motivation.
That's right.
How do I motivate? And yeah, let's get into culture a little bit. Is it the same thing to motivate an Italian as a Chinese person? I'm generalizing here, but there are some subtleties which we need to be careful about. When it comes to culture, so diversity management was managing the HR side, the human side. What is cross-cultural management? Cross-culture is the external side. It's when we go out of our company, okay? So if I'm developing products, for example, Barbie in China, the example we gave on our webpage when we were advertising this course. Barbie in China did not work out because Chinese parents are very careful about the way their children play, because there needs to be an element of learning. So Barbie, just as Barbie, didn't work. When Disney combined Barbie with English teaching, hello, we had the biggest English teaching company in China using Barbie. So that's the way, that's the adequate way to adapt to Chinese culture and market to Chinese culture. So for example, here on the slide you have 3 examples. Interacting with current and potential customers is another area. Adrian, if you go to Japan, do you know the business etiquette? How do you present yourself? How do you relate with another person? These are all issues that in a workforce are going to have an impact on time, communication, structure, the individual, and power. This is just a slide that overviews the different areas that culture impacts. More practically, if you look at the second slide over here, this is exactly what I was telling you about. If you go to Japan, how do you give gifts? Do you give gifts?
So we should do our homework a little bit as well, you're saying?
Yeah, we always need to prepare. For example, when multinational companies deploy their personnel to different countries, they do cross-cultural training. They do cross-cultural training so that the person is ready to interact and be sort of compliant with the destination culture he is going to. Because business norms are quite different from country to country. Let me give you an example here. For example, HSBC is a global bank which is started off in Hong Kong, then spread all across the world. And in the 90s, their novel product was, we offer banking services to the expatriates. So exactly the kind of person who works in a multinational company going from country to country. They came up with a product which was meant for the needs of Italians going to Saudi Arabia and going to Indonesia, but having one current account through which they could work, both in Saudi Arabia and in Indonesia and in Italy. This product was devised so that international people specifically could have access to their finances globally. Who devised this? How did they come to it? Well, they came to it because HSBC recruits multicultural global people. So in the input, they have a multicultural policy. What happens on the output? On the output, you have cross-cultural management. So when they devised that product, that current account for the global expatriates, they came up with a series of ads showing, "We are your local bank." The slogan actually was HSBC, your local bank, because culture matters. So there was a series of global advertisements focusing on culture. If the participants want to go on YouTube and check it out for themselves, they'll find a series of adverts. I'm looking forward to questions or any sort of input that might come from people on the other side. So if you feel that there is anything you want to ask us, please do write us a question.
Right.
We'll keep going on from now. Here's a question out to you just to get the interaction started. What do you see? I know that some people will see this
Piece of land.
Immediately. Good, yeah, Adrian, it is a piece of land. Piece of land, absolutely right. The thing is, for example, when many people show this, and it takes about 10, 15, 30 seconds. I know people who don't see it immediately, but I'm wondering if we should give them the answer already.
Well, let's see if someone actually replies.
All right.
Any replies over there to see what they actually see? Anything specific? We give it maybe 5 seconds or so.
Yeah, 10 more seconds. Let's do it.
And if not, then we'll just give them the answer. What do you think?
Yeah, they can do it that way. Anyhow, you got to focus a little bit on the colors, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So, my clue was a piece of land, but it's just more than a piece of land, isn't it?
It's a big piece of land.
Yes, exactly.
It's also a place where we live, both me and you.
Right,
Now
okay.
we're giving away hints.
Exactly. Well, stereotype, pizza, spaghetti.
Let's give them the answer.
All right.
Basically, what we have here is Italy, as many of you might have seen it. It is the fact that you have to focus on colors. Since childhood, we've been taught to focus on black. Here, the inverse happens.
Yeah.
This is exactly the message about culture that we want to communicate today. It takes a little bit of adaptation, very little change, but if we practice, if we adapt, we will be able to see these things better.
Yes.
Here's another one. And once again, there are two things that you could see.
Well, there's a question we can ask our viewers, can't we?
Yeah,
How old is the lady?
How old is the lady? It's always a good question to ask.
Anyone got an answer for us there? In fact, this is interesting too, because this is also, it's really about your perception as well and how
Absolutely.
you see things.
This is perception. This is actually a lot about how we've been taught color codes also. From the age to 4 to 6, that's the age in which parents are teaching us the most important things. And you know that maybe your parents taught you something in South Africa, mine taught me in India, and in China they're teaching different things. So that is having an impact on how we grow, how we develop.
And this is also how stereotypes also are created as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, you can decide what kind of lady you're seeing in that image over there. Adrian, what do you see? Give me the answer.
I would say a nice young lady.
There you go.
Looking towards the right.
Nice young lady. And the next thing is there's also an old lady in the picture over there. The message, we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. And that's a focal point. That's a focal point. Because as the global scenario is changing, we know these terms, immigration, we are going from country to country. languages, the effect of languages. We are spreading let's say that the professional workforce has a greater ability nowadays to grow abroad. Look at the Italians on the streets, for example. Many of my students at university, they say, if I'm not going to get work here, you know what, I'll just go abroad. Not easy. Language is important point. Culture, adapting to culture is another important point. Now the thing is, how do we define culture? We use this, you might have seen this, Adrian, this iceberg model.
Right,
so basically, when I walk into the room, you notice certain things, such as my hair is darker, my skin is
physical
darker,
appearance.
I'm male, exactly. These are all things we notice on the superficial level. Whilst below is all the religion. For example, I'm Hindu, another person may be Christian, my sexual orientation, I may be gay or heterosexual, my family status. Does it actually make a difference if I'm a single child, or maybe a brother, or having siblings does make a difference? Not having children makes a difference. The level of education. Did I study in an international school, or did I go to a local public school? It does change the way we look at things. So defining culture is really important here. So I'm taking a step back here on this slide, and we looked at multicultural, we looked at diversity, we looked at cross-culture. The thing is, this is the key point. What is culture? Set of social norms and responses that dominate the behavior. Now, when I take this to a business context, please, we need to be careful. It doesn't entirely dominate the behavior, because many of us must have worked with other people in other countries. We are talking about a sort of sensitivity we have to develop. This is about awareness. This is about being aware of differences. For example, please count up to what number can you count using your both hands? Adrian, show me.
Both hands?
Yeah. What number can you go?
Well, I would say 10.
Okay. Show me. How do you do that?
I'll start with my thumb.
Right, sorry.
Perhaps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'll use my thumbs and count to 10.
Use your thumbs and count to 10. Well, here's something different. I could use, what do we call these, phalanges? I could use these marks on my finger, which is done in Asia, most of it, and count up to 20 on my hand. So it would go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Right,
which means that I can count to 40 on both hands.
Sweet.
Okay? So this is something about, for example, how the mathematical ability, this is the way they count in South India, for example, and even in other countries across Asia. Populous country, you need to manage bigger numbers. So you better find a way to do it even in your hands. This is how we are taught things while we are children. And for example, this is another model for defining culture, how we are taught. This is McDonald's. I chose McDonald's because it is something which we all know. You see, McDonald's has values and sentiments, and what you see on the slide here is the core value written in the official communication of McDonald's. So they are going to provide good food, quality service, cleanliness at a value. Okay, this is the central value. Then you have behavior and rules. What is the sort of behavior and rules which you are affected by when you enter McDonald's? Nowadays in McDonald's, it's all gone digital.
Right.
First of all, but if I take a step back, digital is new. We always used to go to the counter, order the things, they're set out in the same way. One interesting thing, McDonald's doesn't have that many menus. It has breakfast menu and it has a lunch and dinner menu. Well, even that is standardized. You know that all the processes of production at McDonald's are standardized. For example, a burger is cooked exactly in 3 minutes. Because a person, when they join McDonald's, they're given training to work in a certain way. So they tell them, this is the way you have to behave, these are the rules. Who are the heroes and models of McDonald's? Well, Ronald McDonald. And here we have communication affected by culture. Ronald McDonald doesn't look the same across all countries. Those are 3 examples. The first one's Russia, where Ronald McDonald is big and fat.
Wow, yeah. Looks like Size Me Up.
Exactly, it looks like Size Me Up. And then you got Ronald McDonald in Japan, and then you got Ronald McDonald in Malaysia.
Okay.
In Malaysia, he's putting his hands together.
Okay.
So basically, we're changing the heroes and models of McDonald's to communicate across cultures. This is a clear example of
how they
cross-cultural.
adapt and adopt as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
adapting and adopting.
Yeah.
Keywords. Keywords. Moving on. You see, who is doing that? Who has the task to adopt and adapt? Managers. Key managers inside McDonald's, inside IBM, inside Microsoft. They are the global leaders who have the faculty to interpret social meaning, social behaviors, and apply them. This slide means that we need to be really careful when interpreting cultures and moving between borders. Because if I say one thing in English, it has a contextual meaning in South Africa, it might have a completely different contextual meaning in India or in the States. And we're going to make some examples at the end of this. Because at the end of this, diversity is the way we manage, cross-culture is the way we communicate, but the real way we communicate is using language. And this is our language course, so we must find some implications for language, and we're going to do this at the end.
Okay.
But what are the tools? What are the tools? Well, how do you want to see yourself? How do you do this? How do you manage to bridge? And I use something from the Bible there. It says, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened for you. To summarize, we need to map differences. We need to have some tools to understand what are the cross-border differences.
Okay.
Then we need to apply them. Bridge. Map and bridge are the key activities which we need to do in order to understand. We must not forget who we are, but at the same time we can try to adapt to others. It's important to keep our identity authentic, at the same time put in an effort to know other cultures in global business communication. Some of the tools that we develop in the cross-cultural training are given by this gentleman called Hofstede, who studied within IBM for 30 years. Actually, he still studies. Dr. Hofstede has his research institute, and he basically segmented elements. He calls them dimensions, dimensions of culture. So you see these names: power distance, individualism, feminine, masculine. Just to give some examples, because obviously you see the slide. For example, power distance, Adrian. 80 global is a rather, what should I say, not a hierarchical, it's more a horizontal power distance, me and you, sitting one next to the other. Yeah. We are very much in a Western culture having horizontal power distance. We are sharing our voice, we are sharing this. Very different from a hierarchical organization, in a vertical organization, for example. And then I'm going to associate with culture, so horizontal, American, or Scandinavian way of office, you know. Yes, there is a leader, but at the same time, it is not that he sits in a higher office and has his cubicle.
He shares the open space as well with his colleagues, perhaps, as well.
Exactly. This is about design and power distance. If we take this model down to China, it doesn't work in the same way. Power distance is important. Hierarchy is important, because if I'm Chinese, the person above me is sacred, because he is above me, because he knows more than me. This is key. If I am wrong at something, I will absolutely go and ask for advice to the other person. And he's the one I refer to. He is my leader. And I worship him. I know that we are exaggerating a little bit, but power distance in China generates hierarchies. The value of power distance is very high compared to the United States, where even an intern in a business meeting can actually say something if he wants. It's irrelevant if his point will be taken into account or not, but even an intern can actually speak up in a business meeting, and is actually taken to a business meeting. Very different. Very, very different. I'm just going to focus on
this. More democracy.
Yeah, more than democracy. Well, you put up a good point here, Adrian. If you take me another step back, how did democracy and totalitarianism come on earth? I want you to forget about politics for a second. I want to go back to geography.
Okay.
Europe was full of lakes. When you have lakes, you can live around the lake, and every house has equal access to water. Yeah? So you have a democratic system. You have access to water. Everybody has access. Now, if we go to Asia, there were rivers. Yes, you have equal access if you live along the river.
Right.
But what happens if the person in the top creates a dam? Everybody below does not have access anymore to river. According to Dr. David Landis, who was a historical economist, the landscape of Asia and Europe actually determined how structures of politics and power actually came about. Sure. And so we can go really back and see how power distance actually came about. For example, it is believed that the dominance of one man on another basically came about when the first man built his house higher on a hill, and he looked down on the other man and said, I could dominate this man. Okay. That is exactly how it happened, according to studies and according to professors, according to theory. But all this has an implication for us when it comes to cultural differences in the business context, and that is exactly what we were doing, and Hofstede studied this. Another gentleman who has really given a lot of input is Dr. Hall, because he says there are 5 silent languages. For example, time. Now, Adrian knows that I'm Indian, and thus he always allows me to be a little bit late. Okay. No, I'm kidding. You don't. Adrian doesn't. He's very precise, and therefore I am precise. But let's be honest, in Italy, when you go to university, you have quarto d'ora accademico. Okay. Yeah, this is something very typical. Okay. So when I teach in university, I can come 15 minutes late.
Because you won't find anybody in the classroom?
Sorry?
There won't be anybody in the classroom?
Yeah, there might not be people in the classroom, because it is custom, it's culture, that a professor may, it's not a law, the professor may come 15 minutes late. But the thing is, sometimes may becomes the professor will come 15 minutes late for some people, so they come 15 minutes late. At the same time, certain lessons you end 15 minutes before. So what happens? Basically, a 1.5 hour lesson becomes a 1 hour lesson, because you've chopped off 15 minutes in the beginning and you chopped off 15 minutes at the end. But okay, let's not make just Italian examples. Sure. In India itself, for example, anybody who works with India knows that time does not have the same value as it does, for example, in Italy. Why is it? And once again, I take a step back. Mm-hmm. What is your vision of time? In the West, time is linear. Start, present, end. Life. Born, live, die. What's life in India? Born, live, die, reborn, live, die, reborn. So reincarnation. Yeah. Therefore, concept of time is circular. Okay. How does this impact day-to-day business activity? Well, if you've ever worked with India, and many Italians do, because there are good relations between Italy and India in terms of business, forget the Maroc case, you will see that there is a big problem in people not respecting time. How do you manage that? How do you manage that? Well, one thing, for example, if you need to organize an event or a meeting, you always make sure that you never say specific time, let's meet at 3 o'clock. You always say, please gentlemen, let's meet at 2:30 so we can start at 3 o'clock. And you see, so you're giving them not a specific time, but a range. Because Indians work with range. Okay. They never say, Adrian, I'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. They say, Adrian, I'll see you tomorrow in the afternoon. For Italians who come from the south of Italy, this is common. Ci vediamo nel pomeriggio. It's a standard statement, you know? It's a range, it's not a specific time. And the same thing Hall goes on to say about, for example, the value of context. High context and low context. This is the key main difference, for example, about cultural communication. High context versus low context. In high context, there is a lot of use of facial expression. And what I'm saying, the way I'm saying. In low context, I'm going to tell you very directly what I want you to do. So, to make an example, we have a situation, boss and employee.
Yeah.
Employee sends some files to the boss. Boss looks at the files and say, good job, Rudra. Could we kindly please correct the things on page 2 because they don't look right to me? Okay?
Right.
This is sort of kind communication.
Yes,
okay?
that.
Very different if it says, Rudra, page 2 is completely wrong. Please could you correct that? It's the way the sentence is constructed. The first one is as if, it's okay, could you kindly correct?
Yeah.
The second one is, this is wrong, could you kindly correct? Indirect communication, direct communication. To give an example, Germans are very direct in their communications, and so are Americans. They'll tell you exactly how things stand.
To your face.
To your face. You don't have to interpret. Okay?
Exactly. That's a good word. That's exactly what it
You
is.
don't have to
You
interpret.
could misinterpret certain
You could
messages
misinterpret.
that come to you.
Absolutely. If I speak in Arabic, which is a very poetic language, I'll tendentially tell you the same thing in a metaphor. Now, we are not used to speaking metaphorically, not at all. So we need to understand where that gentleman who just spoke in Arabic is coming from. What's his background? Why is he using that specific piece of poetry? In most cases, we won't even know that piece of poetry. There's a difference between high context communication and low context. In high context cultures, we need to evaluate and interpret the context, the person, the way he says things.
The feelings, his
The
feelings as well.
absolutely. In low context, go with the word, and in 99.9% of cases, you're going to be right. This is the main difference in cultural communication.
Okay.
Just to move on and go to our cultural tips section.
Yes.
I'm wondering if there are any questions on the roster which people who are following the webinar might have sent along. So give them another 30 seconds to write down any questions or comments that they might be feeling now.
Sure.
How's this going for you? Do you want me to add anything more on culture?
No, it's very interesting, but at the same time, it's the topic is quite.
It's big, eh?
Quite big.
It's
and
big.
Exactly, and this is just to show as well that we can do a lot really with.
Absolutely, because for example, diversity is mainly about managing people. How do I recruit multicultural talent into my company? Where do I find them in Italy, or where do I find them abroad? How do I use IT tools to find the right people for me? How do I assess their multicultural ability?
Yeah.
On the other hand, cross-cultural communication. My company is going to Iran. Many people are going to Iran because Iran just opened up its market. The sanctions are over. What is the right way of interacting in Iran? How do I assure that this supplier is the right one for me? What are the cultural cues or tips that I need to have to understand the other person better before I actually make a deal and move to Iran? This is an issue on which we have been working. For example, my dad's company, which is a small company near Bergamo, they decided to move to Iran. One of their they're trying to sell in Iran, so they're training a sales agent. She's an Iranian girl, brought up in Italy, with an engineering degree, and they've recruited her, and they're going to send her back home for a period of 6 months. So she's going to start to sell their technology. You know, to go from the small valley of Bergamo to Tehran, that's a cultural leap. You need to be prepared for it. Now this lady is obviously prepared because she's of Iranian origin, she's an engineer, and she's going to go back home.
Okay.
So that's the kind of training you give, cross-cultural training in that case, in order to let her go back home. Although in many cases she knows her culture,
Sure.
but just to make sure that she's on the right term and know the company as well and the Italian culture, they're giving her the cross-cultural training. Let's go on with the English tips where we probably will have some examples, some funny examples.
Yes, let's do that.
All right, yeah, I chose the UK and American flag, although I must say, Adrian, and I hope you agree with me, English is not limited to those two countries. I mean,
Fair enough.
I could have put in a lot more flags.
there.
Yeah, but anyway.
But that's fine.
Yeah, and we just go on. There you go. What do you think about this? So I make a statement, Adrian, here saying that English is a difficult language, while at the same time, globally, many people say that, hey, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian is difficult. Why do we say that English is a difficult language? Well, basically...
Spelling could be one, I think.
Spelling is always... Absolutely. Absolutely. We put in some examples on the slide. Enough and through. These are pronunciation problems. This is a very small part of linguistic communication. If I were to make an iceberg about language, pronunciation is probably, you can see it. If I pronounce things incorrectly, you get an idea of my level of knowledge. But at the same time, it doesn't clearly state my level of English knowledge. It's a nuance, it's a visible thing, which if you're good at, surely makes you come out as a confident English speaker. As soon as you make an error of pronunciation, you do, however, transmit a message that this is still not a perfect English communication.
You might have a vast vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Grammatically speaking correct as well, but that...
Yeah, spelling and pronunciation to focus on when speaking in English is important. Especially, we must remember, and this is very true, and maybe that's the reason why I chose the American and the English flag. Monocultural, monolinguist. How many people in the UK speak another language besides English? Let me make a more specific question. How many UK national residents actually speak another language besides English? How much are they exposed? How much are Americans exposed to other languages? I was in America and this was in 2011, and I still won't forget it. And sorry if I generalize, nothing against Americans, but we're talking about different cultural, different geographical and linguistic issues. I was walking down the road and I was speaking in Italian. Somebody stops me and goes, you're Italian? Yeah. I'm going to Europe tomorrow. I'm like, great, yeah, where are you going to? Paris. Okay. Paris is all of Europe. It's beautiful. Where else in Europe are you going? No, just Paris. Paris is Europe. What language do they speak there? Don't they speak English? This was a conversation. Might sound exaggerated, but this was a standard conversation. It's a beautiful cultural thing. In America, people will stop you and they'll talk to you, something which does not happen in Italy. But I had this conversation authentically on the road in Washington, D.C. It was a normal conversation about a gentleman telling me he's going to Europe tomorrow. Okay. Thus, he sees Europe as one block. Right. He does not distinguish between France, UK, Italy, Netherlands, etc., etc. This is the kind of thing when you're going to communicate, if you are specific. But if you make certain mistakes, such as spelling or pronunciation, it does come out. I'm not saying this is not an English course where we're saying that you need to learn more English and etc. etc. We're just saying that this is a nuance of the English language which does indicate your knowledge. And when you're speaking to monocultural, monolinguist people of Anglo-Saxon origin, this makes a difference.
Yeah, the thing is with English, there are a lot of exceptions, as they say.
Yeah.
And so it's unfortunate, but some of these exceptions just need to be learned.
Absolutely.
Because if not, like this example is perfect. Cough, through, though, all the OU, and they all got different sounds.
Absolutely.
And there's no, unfortunately, rule behind that.
Yeah. This is another thing. When you're communicating in English across cultures, but this can be true also of other languages, keep it simple is the second rule. We tend, if we are... I can make complex sentences. I can choose to. If I'm speaking with Adrian, I will not think about the cross-cultural difference because Adrian is an English teacher. He's a trainer. He knows English, so I'm going to speak without any sort of care. I'm probably going to throw on some Indian English words as well, which you might understand or might not understand, but they will not create a lot of difference in communication. For example, lunch. How do you say lunch?
I would say lunch.
What about tiffin?
Tiffin.
Tiffin is the box which the Englishmen used to take to lunch,
Okay.
and in India we say tiffin for lunch. What do you have for tiffin?
Lunchbox.
Lunchbox, exactly.
Yeah.
Tiffin and lunchbox. So rather than use that kind of complicated language, here the second tip is try to keep it simple and use simple words. I think the main message here is simple is good.
Simplify.
Yeah,
Sure.
simplify everything. And this is the same thing when you talk in any other language, but keep it simple. Also in English. Feedback. This is something we need to be careful about when working across cultures. The key point is, if I nod my head like this is a yes here. But in South India, this is a no. A yes in South India is this. Just to make a physical example,
Right.
okay? So you must always remember that when you're speaking with someone who is not from your culture or doesn't know the level of language very well, it is upon you to understand and make sure that they have understood. This is very important. And it is especially important with the head nodding and the yes saying, which takes me to my second level. So remember, give and seek feedback and make sure that the other person has understood. Close-ended questions, this is my second level, versus open-ended questions. With close-ended questions, you're going to get a person who says, yes, no.
Yes.
Okay? Now, if a supplier, as we say in the slide, just nods his head, did you understand? You need to deliver that by Monday morning. He does this, and he goes away. You know, a yes in certain context
It's more, it's more powerful a yes perhaps than a head nod.
Exactly.
In case you don't know the culture.
Exactly. What happens if the person says, we'll try?
We'll try.
Yeah. You ask him.
Yeah.
You understand that this needs to be delivered on Monday morning. And I say, we'll try.
Yeah, we'll try what? We'll try to understand, we'll try to deliver.
Exactly. There you go. We already have 2 questions there.
Exactly.
For example, in India, this happens a lot. I'm Indian, so I'm making some Indian examples today. If a person says yes, actually, that is the direct communication. But the meta communication below that is, yes, I'm going to do my best to make it happen. But please remember that the world is full of uncertainty. So it's not up to me. So you see, there's a lot of meaning under that word, yes. It actually means, yes, I will try.
It's kind of an iceberg as well, isn't it?
It is an iceberg. India is full of iceberg communication all the time. You have to think about the context. Open-ended questions, on the other hand, are wonderful in the sense that they allow a person to think, to see, to analyze, and interpret and come up with his own answers. So that's the way to go through cross-cultural, cross-border communication. Ask more open-ended questions. Huh? Rather than, is this good? Is this bad?
Perhaps, what did you understand?
Yeah, what did you understand? That's a very direct way, Adrian, of asking if somebody has understood.
Yes.
Maybe better, even better to say, like, once you've explained something,
yes.
Excuse me, Dr. Nunes.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Not even that.
Did I manage to clarify it to you? I need to be sure that we both understand the same thing together. So do you mind telling me if...
Yes.
What are the 3
yes,
points?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like indirect, like using more words indirect. Not understanding versus misunderstanding is our 4th. Now here, we actually take a couple of issues from our first tip, which is misunderstanding of words. I won't help you, understood as I want to help you. This is about ability to listen, because in communication, one thing is to speak, another thing is the ability to listen. And that is why in English, we need to do always more and more listening exercises. Also because I know that monolinguist, when we learn English, we also listen to a lot of different accents. For example, working with people coming from Texas means listening to a very specific kind of English compared to working with somebody coming from South Africa or somebody from Australia, where miscommunication, misunderstanding can happen more if we don't have the practice of listening. Listening is important. It's one of those skills
and
that
if you don't understand, you should ask, what does it mean?
Exactly.
South Africans have a tendency to say robots.
What's
instead
that?
Of traffic lights. So
Robots?
Robot, yes. So you might say to me, sorry, where's the shop, whatever, and I'd say that at the robots you turn left. And they wouldn't...
I'd never heard of this. Okay, there you go. This is another cross-cultural example, which is great. I've never heard of robots.
Well, exactly, the robots. So they might say, sorry, but where are the robots? What are the robots?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if so, it's important for them to understand. So,
well, it's amazing how you find these things. Robot, I'm gonna note that one down. Well, moving, and this is very true. Tip 5, speak slowly and clearly. How many times has it happened to you? I know it has happened to me the first years in Italy, and this is not about English, this is about any country. You go there and people look at you and say, Lei mi capisce?
Yes.
Parlo lentamente. And you see, this is very natural because the person who is speaking is really trying, okay? Is trying to speak it clearly, slowly. But when you do that, if the other person by any chance understands even a little bit of the language, he or she does not feel comfortable.
No.
Because he or she feels, why is this person talking to me like this?
Must feel degraded.
Yes, you can also feel degraded if you have a good knowledge of language. And if I show up and a person starts speaking to me because of the iceberg, he sees that I have dark hair and automatically uses the stereotype to translate into this person doesn't speak Italian, then these issues can happen. So never underestimate also what you see of the iceberg. There are many people who are multicultural, multilingual and global. So if you do this kind of, if you take these tips, iceberg-like tips on the surface and use those to interpret people, you are forgetting that there is a lot below, which actually we need to know in order to work across cultures. Going on, repeat if necessary. This is so important. This is really, really important because once you've asked, what happens? For example, meetings, Adrian. We are normally used to meetings where a group of workers get together, we decide, we take a decision, tasks are distributed, and everybody goes and does them, okay? Now, this is our way of working in Italy. Things don't work in the same way in China. When you have group meetings, it is about group culture and group decisions. Decisions, however, are made in a very different way in Chinese culture. Collective society, yes, true. They will meet around the table, but they meet around the table in festive occasions to share. When it comes to decision making, it is done on a one-by-one basis. Okay? So decisions need to be made person to person inside a closed door. Once you've done that and you communicate that message to a group, you need to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Okay? And that means you need to give clear messages and repeat them. How many times do misunderstandings happen in cross-cultural communication? A lot. We have seen why they happen. In order to avoid, one way is to repeat. It says repeat if necessary on the slide. I would say always repeat by doing a synopsis, a summary of everything that has been said during a meeting, during a presentation at the end. Always start with an introduction, go through the content and a summary. That is also the way I think we were taught in English schools to produce documents, you know? Introduction,
well, it should be the minutes as well.
Should be the minutes as well, absolutely. Should be the minutes as well. Here's something you like, acronyms.
Oh,
idioms.
Acronyms, yes.
You remember...
ASAP.
ASAP is a classical acronym. ASAP.
It's like, what's ASAP?
Yeah.
If someone says ASAP to me, I wouldn't understand it.
I know.
I would say ASAP, so...
This is something which is very typical of American business communication in English. they use a lot of abbreviation, or Indian, they use a lot of abbreviation. The thing is, the more abbreviation we use, the harder it becomes, because the other cultures are not using that many abbreviations, or not many idioms as well. For example, due piccioni con una fava, yeah, which is the saying we can kill two birds with one stone. Now, the first time somebody told me due piccioni con una fava, I asked myself, first of all, what is a fava? And why pigeons? Because I never saw pigeons in India.
Okay.
I mean, there are not that many pigeons. 2 crows with a cricket ball is more understandable to me than due piccioni con una fava. This is just because countries' geographies are different. So the less idioms, less acronyms and abbreviations we use,
the better.
Yeah, the better, the simpler our languages. Now, here's something about speaking. Speaking is all good, but it will always have a limit to understanding. For example, let me give you a very, very specific cross-cultural communication and marketing example. A bank in Italy decided to make a special product for uneducated farmers coming from foreign countries living in Italy. Okay? So these people were farmers working in the land. They didn't speak good Italian. They didn't even have basic education. But a bank had made an insurance product for them.
Especially for them?
Especially for them. Because there are many of them. Okay? Now, how do you communicate this at that level? You can surely go and show them picture by picture how the product works. You can do an oral presentation. You can write it down for them, which is the most important thing. The thing is, when there is a really big cross-cultural difference, for example, on the slide it says, how is a process applied? You know? If I take a process and I give it to a German, an Italian, and an American, I say, here's the process, do it your way. The Italian will probably focus on the speed and the quality. The German will focus on how to plan the process and get it right. The American will focus on which is the most economic and profitable way to do this process. There are 3 different things. The word is the same. Do what you want to do with this process. Let's make it clear by telling them exactly, I want you to make the process in this way, by this and this date, write it down to them, send them a mail, get a confirmation. Now, going back to the example that I was making before of selling that bank product to foreigners who did not have education, in Italy, by the way, a real life example, pictograms. We actually made pictograms, pictures of them using the product. So we had an artist making pictograms of them using the product. We had to go that far because it was not clear to them how the product worked. Sometimes you just have to even take it another level. It's not enough to speak, not enough even to speak in their language, but because they are not well educated, you need to go to the level of pictures. That's a specific case, but that's a real cross-cultural example case. Which brings us a little bit to the end.
Yes, I think we're getting close to the end now.
And a little bit of conclusion.
About 5 minutes left, so if there are any questions, I think
questions are good, but maybe I will just go on by... should I summarize? Because I said we always need to summarize things when we start, because that's the way we
Yes, I guess what we're waiting for. Let's have a question or two. If not, we can summarize.
Perfect. So we looked at diversity management in the beginning as a way to manage talent and recruit talent to come into a business organization. If you do diversity management and keep this talent in your company, you need to find real implications. Where do you find these implications? On the external, on the communication and the marketing. When you're developing certain products, you have multicultural talent in your company who can help you look at it from different angles. There are many such cases. The Barbie case was that. Probably they didn't have multicultural people when coming up with a strategy of how to go to China. And we saw a concrete example of HSBC. which we said recruits multicultural people and then makes multicultural products. Same example we saw with the banking, where we didn't have HR resources, but we had a multicultural product, and we really focused on the cross-cultural communication of this product to these people. So you have two areas in which you can implement this kind of knowledge. We looked at some tools. We didn't look at tools of diversity management because they are HR tools. We looked at tools of cross-cultural communication. Which are the tools that allow me to understand the difference between cultures and nations? Well, we looked at Hofstede and Hall. That's actually just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more. There's more studies going on, and there are more methods. So once you've actually used those tools and understood the differences, we want to look at applications, and that's what we do in courses. What kind of training do I give to a person who is going to Iran? And we do that kind of training. What kind of cultural sensibility is required when I make a washing powder and sell it to Kazakhstan? Does Dash work in Italy just as it works in Kazakhstan?
Right.
No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. When they launched Dash in Kazakhstan, actually, Unilever, it really went well. But when they launched it in Afghanistan, they had a huge problem. The product did not sell after the first month. So they sent in their research team, and they found out when they talked to a lady sitting in home washing her clothes, they asked, "Madam, why do you not use our product anymore?" And the lady said, "Initially it was good, the branding was good, the packaging was nice, but this doesn't wash turmeric." Turmeric is a spice that is used in Afghan food, which is also used in Asian cooking. Now, Unilever's big problem was it did not factor in that in Afghanistan they use turmeric and in Kazakhstan they don't use turmeric. So the product didn't work. This is the sort of thing. If you have the researchers who think like this, you will know and you will find the solution and you will market it in the right way. This is the whole process on which we've been working.
Sorry to cut you short, but I think we have a question here.
Yeah. It says, how can my accent affect my interaction with my colleagues? Okay.
I'm Italian. Every time I say it,
yeah,
people
from UK and America reply with pizza and mandolino. How do I deal with it? All right.
What kind of action could be more useful to manage cross-cultural relations in a business context?
For example, we have stereotypes. Americans have general stereotypes because of a lack of knowledge about what Italy actually is. What is the media image? The media image is that. How do we stop from doing that? Well, the first thing is, for example, in the UK, and this is a real example, if you send in your CV and you write on your CV that you're Italian or Danish or Chinese, your CV gets thrown. Because one thing which is a value in the UK is professionalism. And you don't get chosen for, even if you put your age or your sex, the CV gets thrown. You don't get chosen for because you're Italian, because you're 18, and because you're a woman. You get chosen because you're competent. So in a communication, a lot of it is about just speaking and waiting to focus on saying I'm Italian. I know that Italy comes with a lot of stereotypes, but the best way sometimes is also to make sure and explain that even the Americans have some stereotypes.
Sure. And English as well.
English as well. I mean, they're called the Yankees for certain reasons. Or in school we used to be told that they're the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. There are some stereotypes. It's actually not about tit for tat, occhio per occhio. It's more about being careful on the way we present Italy. Now if we say we are from Italy and we have a very strong accent, the same is true when a person from Texas says, I'm from Texas. He also has a very strong accent. The important thing is to bridge on differences. By bridging on differences in a business context, I mean, maybe you need to communicate a little bit more about real Italian culture. maybe
Yes.
you need to tell them, pasta? You know pasta,
Yeah.
but do you know how many types of pasta there are?
Yes.
Do you know where a mandolino is made and how many types are made? Have you ever heard of what happens in the city of Cremona? Do you know who was the famous composer in Cremona? So the thing is not about aggressively telling him these things as a counterpoint. It is about sharing the cultural values of Italy. Many a time when you have these stereotypes, it's because you don't know enough about the other culture. So we need to communicate more information.
Thanks, Rudra. Looks like our time is coming to an end now.
Okay?
We've just got to...
We better move on then,
unfortunately,
Adrian.
yes. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time for other questions right now.
Well, what I'd say is I hope that it has been useful and that there are some tips that people might find in this slide which will be available. In any case, I guess AD Global is here to close.
Yes.
So yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I would like to say thank you for coming, really. It's been a great pleasure, and I hope the viewers really found this webinar interesting as well.
Great.
And well, to finish off, really, would like to remind you about a few things. Firstly, don't forget to follow our Facebook and LinkedIn pages for any latest news out there. There's a next webinar will be next week, same time, from 12 to 1. And it's going to be basically Diagram Gannett and Microsoft project, which is a kind of a combination between the two areas, AD management and technology. So this synergized this interesting topic. Later you'll be sent a certificate of participation as well, and a link so you could re-listen to today's webinar. And for any questions or requests, please send an email to get the pronunciation right, commerciale@adglobalsolution.it. And if you're interested in looking at our website in general, please visit it at www.adglobalsolution.it.